I have great pleasure in introducing the second keynote of CyFy, Philipp Metzger, the Director General of the Swiss Federal Office of Communication. He is a lawyer by training, and he's worked as a lawyer as well, and he has been in the IT sector. We will be putting up his CV. That's mine, sorry. We'll be putting up his CV as well. And as he comes to speak, and I'm delighted to also inform you that this is the first time we are partnering with the Swiss government on any project at ORF, and we hope that this is the first of many more. So we thank the Swiss government for their support from the very beginning to this year's CyFy, and for helping us, in fact, conceive of some ideas and themes and also identify some speakers. So thank you very much, Mr. Metzger, and can I request you to come and speak to us? It's all yours.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, dear friends, I am very honored here today to have the opportunity to address you on the occasion of CyFy 2016 in the thriving city of Delhi. India is a key player indeed in the global internet governance debate, as well as in the discussions on cybersecurity. The cooperation between our countries has always been very productive and fruitful. We look forward to continuing to work together on these issues, and let me thank the government of India wholeheartedly for its hospitality, and of course the Observer Research Foundation for organizing this conference so proficiently, and for gathering so many cyber experts from all around the world. I really can say I have been truly, thoroughly impressed yesterday with the concentration of expertise and know-how we have in this room here. And I've been very impressed as well by the quality of the debates, and I'm certain that's going to continue today. Switzerland has been asked to share some of its key experiences and its key activities in the field of internet governance and cybersecurity, and my colleagues and I are happily doing that today and tomorrow. Having said that, at least as I am concerned, from my intervention this morning, it is quite a daunting task, I have to say. After having listened yesterday evening to the brilliant speech of His Excellency Minister Ravi Shankar Prasad, we have heard a very impressive list of programs and activities that India are currently undertaking. The Minister has spoken extensively about the Digital India program. And as you will hear over the coming minutes, I'm going to speak quite a bit about the Digital Switzerland strategy. And as you will notice, there are a lot of commonalities between what the Minister told us yesterday, what India is doing under the Digital India program, and the activities that we are have started under the Digital Switzerland strategy. And I also would like to emphasize we have been extremely heartened to hear from the Minister the commitment of India to the multi-stakeholder model, and also about the transparency, how the decision-making process came about. I think that is true multi-stakeholderism, and I really would like to thank India for that. The multi-stakeholder model is something very close to our hearts in Switzerland too. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me start with a very broad view first. Our lives are increasingly being influenced by digitization. Digitization is a global phenomenon and affects all our societies, economies, and governments. But in 2016, digitization is actually only at the beginning. We will see fundamental transformations in our economies and societies in the years to come. Today, we are only starting to see the unprecedented opportunities that digitization offers to all of us. Big data brings an enormous potential to improve all aspects of our lives, for example, on health, better understanding of nature, more efficient use of resources, efficiency gains for businesses and users, and mobility, just to name a few. The Internet of Things is becoming more and more reality, and so is artificial intelligence. Access to data, access to information, access to new media increases transparency and allows for empowerment and self-determination of women, men, and young people. Access to broadband internet offers new ways to create, disseminate, and receive information and content, and facilitates participation of citizens in public debates and decision-making. Whoever has access to these means will encounter great opportunities for self-development and for enhanced participation in economic, social, and political life. This may in turn also lead to greater accountability, the Minister has mentioned that yesterday repeatedly, of the political and economic actors. However, digitization will not only create winners. New technologies have disruptive effects, as we know, and there will be fundamental transformation of entire industry sectors. Current jobs and business models will become obsolete, and whoever misses relevant trends will be non-competitive and lose out much more quickly than before. So due to increased globalization, big international economic players may override traditional local economies and society structures, and globalized communications and trade are becoming a challenge to traditional regulatory and other frameworks that are still based on national jurisdictions. So how can we maximize the benefits of digitization while at the same time minimizing its risks? We see 7 main factors that can help us to become winners of digitization rather than losers. First, we need to agree on a globally agreed or globally shared vision and guiding principles of how the world we live in should look like. We do now have a UN 2030 agenda for sustainable development, which was adopted in September 2015 by the United Nations General Assembly. The 17 SDG goals aim for sustainable development of all people and societies in the world, and Switzerland fully supports the SDGs and sees them as a vision that should guide us in all our actions as governments, businesses, citizens, and users. ICTs in particular, the internet, are key for many aspects related to the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. The importance of ICTs, including broadband, and their role in the implementation of the 2030 agenda are already pointed out explicitly in several of the Sustainable Development Goals. We also have the World Summit on the Information Society and the WSIS Plus 10 principles and targets, and Switzerland has contributed to these processes, for example, as a host of the first phase of the WSIS in 2003 in Geneva, and has been supporting the WSIS process ever since. Second, we need to adopt national and regional digital strategies that are adapted to the specifics of the economy and society at hand. In Switzerland, we have developed national strategies and action plans in relation to the information society since the 1990s. And a few months ago, the Swiss government adopted a new overall strategy called Digital Switzerland, the strategy I mentioned earlier, a strategy that acknowledges the importance of ICTs and digitization as a critical instrument in order to achieve sustainable development in all areas of our lives. A specific target in our Digital Switzerland strategy emphasizes the importance of ICTs as a critical resource for sustainable development, and Switzerland is committed to equal access to the internet for the world's entire population, to combating poverty through ICTs, and to linking the WSIS results with the SDGs. This also applies to developing the necessary skills of all stakeholders in relation to ICTs, that is capacity building, in order to fully exploit their potential for the attainment of the Sustainable Development Goals. Furthermore, the Swiss Digital Strategy provides guidelines for government action and indicates where and how public authorities, academia, the private sector, and the civil society need to work together in order to proactively shape the digital transformation process for the benefit of everyone in Switzerland. Third, we need to make sure that all people and economies have equal chances to benefit from digitization. We need to know what people want and what people need. Therefore, we have to talk, and even more importantly, and I think this is exactly also the character and spirit that I feel here, to listen to each other. to learn from each other. We need to have an ongoing discussion with all stakeholders at the national, regional, and global levels. And we should mutually share our experiences, ideas, and solutions, and adopt and adapt them on an ongoing basis. And we are well advised to take stock at regular, not to say frequent intervals, to assess progress and to identify where our strategies need adjustment. This is why Switzerland has been and will always be supporting open and inclusive dialogues, interaction at all levels with all the stakeholders. We have helped to build inclusive multi-stakeholder platforms on internet governance, and we have been a strong supporter of fora such as the Global UN Internet Governance Forum, the IGF, and the European IGF called the Eurodig. At the national level, the Digital Switzerland strategy will continuously be developed in a democratic, inclusive fashion as well. To that end, we will embark upon a national dialogue, which we didn't have in this shape or form so far, a national dialogue in order to enable and, in fact, empower the stakeholders to contribute to the further development of Digital Switzerland. We will, of course, build and take advantage of many excellent existing initiatives, such as this, but also activities and initiatives at the national level by the stakeholders, and we will then try to bring those things together and try to learn our lessons going forward. We have, for instance, in Switzerland, something called the Swiss Internet Governance Forum, as well a bottom-up process and a bottom-up initiative. The fourth factor that we see as a key factor in reaping the benefits from digitization is that all people need to access education and to information and knowledge. So especially those people who are vulnerable or disadvantaged. And this is why we set up 2 years ago the so-called Geneva Internet Platform, the GIP or GIP. This is an open and neutral one-stop shop in Geneva to support in particularly governments, businesses, and NGOs from developing countries to obtain information more easily than this is the case today about what is going on in relation to internet governance, what is being discussed, and where to find out what is important to them and how they can make their voices heard. The GIP aims to serve as an online platform. You'll find it under GIP.org, GIPplatform.org, as an observatory, but also as a capacity building center. There are a number of courses, physical and online, and certainly as a permanent and neutral, I'd like to emphasize that, a neutral venue for discussion on internet governance issues. The GIP has no agenda. It's there to help and to support the capacity building and the mutual information. Through the GIP and its digital watch, as we call it, you can easily follow and understand what issues are discussed, for instance, at the Internet Governance Forum, what is going on, for instance, at an ICANN meeting, or what is being debated right now at the United Nations in New York and in Geneva on privacy and security on the internet. We believe that the GIP makes a meaningful contribution to capacity building in the field of digital policy, including the linkages between WSIS and the SGZs. And we invite all interested parties from all stakeholder groups all over the world, including, of course, our friends here in India, to actively take part and make use of the GIP. Fifth, we need to create an enabling environment that fosters innovation and development. What does that mean? We must work together to reduce barriers to innovation, first and foremost. We need to develop and share good practices of regulatory frameworks that foster development and competition as driving factors of new ideas, solutions and applications, and likewise, of course, good governance and fighting corruption, manipulation, and abuse at the national, regional, and global levels is key for a prosperous ICT environment as well. So all government structures should be transparent and accountable to all stakeholders. I've mentioned that before. And we should take into account the different needs of the stakeholders and the cultures, of course, and building on their respective roles and responsibilities, be that a government, be that the business, civil society, but also the technical and the academic community. Enhancing transparency and accountability will foster participation and inclusiveness in the decision-making processes at all levels so that businesses and citizens can co-determine, I really would like to emphasize that term, co-determine the environment that they deem fit. There should be incentives for the stakeholders to act in the global public interest or interests, and not just in the interest of those few who currently already have means to be at the forefront of the technical and economic development. Maintaining and focusing on fostering diversity at all the levels is pivotal as well, in our view. It's a bit like in nature. Diversity is a key source of innovation. The promotion of diversity is not just a nice to have. It is certainly not making things more complicated. It is truly and actually a conditioned precedent for innovation. And in the same spirit, more efforts are needed to empower women all around the world as far as it comes to ICTs, so that women and girls can fully participate in the digital economy and the digital society. The number of professional, social, political, and also cultural activities in which women and girls are not today or not adequately involved is considerable. And it is unacceptable, in our view, that we leave half of the world's population insufficiently integrated into digital society. This is not only about equal rights, of course it is about equal rights, but it is also about skills, and it is about experiences and a potential that we utterly depend upon in the digital world. Finally, we won't succeed without an appropriate level of security and trust among all actors, societies and regions in the digital world, and this is of course to be based on the rule of law and on a stable, people-centered legal and regulatory framework that is transparent and enforceable. Checks and balances that make sure that the rules and decisions are reasonable, accepted and followed by all actors are indispensable, as are inclusion, participation, and dialogue in order for the different stakeholders to get to know and understand each other and to identify shared objectives and common interests. 6, while we create incentives to innovate, we also need to make sure that nobody is falling behind. We need to provide for a minimum level of safeguards and support for the weaker and disadvantaged populations so that everybody feels part of this vision that we are trying to achieve through the SDGs. It therefore comes hardly as a surprise, or it may come as a surprise, but it is not, from a Swiss perspective, that in our country, universal and public services are a major issue that is being debated both politically, but is also subject to public referenda that we often do in the Swiss direct democratic system, as you know. If parts of our societies feel excluded, and you can take any society anywhere at any level, be it local, be it regional, be it global, in any part of the world, in any country of the world, then there is a risk of attraction towards destructive or even extremist views that could pose a serious threat to stability, security, and prosperity of our societies. And it is in the interest of those that already actually do profit from digital empowerment to support those who don't benefit from those opportunities as of yet. So as the internet is becoming an indispensable for sustainable development, a minimum level of affordable broadband access to internet infrastructure and services is fundamental. And in this regard, Switzerland is involved and participating actively in the ITU UNESCO Broadband Commission for sustainable digital development to speed up broadband coverage in under-equipped and under-deserved areas. With the digitization process, there is a growing need as well to rethink and modernize our system of safeguards on human rights, fundamental freedoms, and social security. We need to make sure that the same rights and freedoms apply online as they do offline. This requires, for instance, tools that allow users and citizens to control their personal data in a way that also creates at the same time incentives to share their data with others so that they can be used for the benefit of the entire society. We are currently working, in Switzerland, on the development of a national data policy that will hopefully allow data to be used much better than that is the case today, especially for innovation and ultimately for welfare and for economic growth for the benefit of everybody, while of course respecting, and that will always be a key factor as well, while respecting people's fundamental rights and freedoms. Now, last but not least, and that is our seventh factor that we deem important for a prosperous digital development, mutual confidence and trust between nations is a prerequisite for securing a peaceful and stable global framework for the development of our digital societies. Cyberspace represents an additional dimension in the global competition for power and influence. And due to its specific features, anonymity, global reach, low entry costs, cyberspace is increasingly being abused to pursue illegitimate purposes or political agendas. And as current conflicts and tensions demonstrate, cyberspace is becoming more and more a source of destabilization. So Switzerland commits itself to a cyberspace which is open, free, and secure, and based on clear rules and mutual trust. The basis to guide our behavior in cyberspace is the existing body of international law and norms, rules and principles for responsible state conduct. This principle should be that the same rights which states and persons have offline are also protected online. And Switzerland has promoted the instrument of confidence-building measures in the cybersecurity realm, in particular within the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, the OSCE. And most recently, Switzerland has been elected as one of the members of the UN group of governmental experts on developments in the field of information and telecommunication in the context of international security, as were India and other countries represented at the CyFy2016. So we do look forward to working together with our colleagues on these questions of utmost importance, and of course also on very fruitful exchanges, since we have all these experts here in Delhi today and tomorrow. The Swiss cybersecurity strategy, which is linked to the overall Digital Switzerland strategy, underscores the importance of international cooperation as a means of to cope with cyber risks. International cooperation was further strengthened and expanded at the bilateral and multilateral levels under the leadership of the Division for Security Policy of our Federal Department of Foreign Affairs and the Federal Office of Communications. And existing bilateral contacts have been intensified and new ones were established. Our national strategy for the protection of Switzerland against cyber risks was adopted by our government in 2012 and currently consists of 16 measures, which cover 4 core areas: prevention, response, continuity, and support processes. And the measures are being implemented in a decentralized manner. And for the implementation of each measure, the lead has been assigned to a governmental office. However, the actual implementation doesn't take place through the government only. It, of course, takes place in a multi-stakeholder way with partners from the private sector, the technical communities, and society, which are heavily involved in the implementation of our cybersecurity strategy. On this occasion, I would like to stress the importance of the 4th pillar of that strategy, that is the support measures I have just mentioned, the support processes, which foresee that Switzerland participates in international organizations and NGOs, as well as processes for the reduction of cyber risks. Ladies and gentlemen, let me sum up. We all need to work together to develop an inclusive digital society and economy with the right balance between incentives to be innovative and to compete, and a level of solidarity and fair distribution of welfare that allows us all to live together in peace and prosperity in a sustainable manner. On behalf of the Swiss delegation, I would like to thank once again the ORF and its chair, Mr. Samin Saran, for organizing CyFy2016. We are very proud to be partners of this year's edition of CyFy, and we do look forward to continuing our collaboration going forward. And in the course of this conference, you will also hear from Swiss experts about their specific activities in the field of internet governance and cybersecurity. The Swiss representative to the UN GGE on cyber security, His Excellency Ambassador Frank Grütter, is also present here today, and he will be intervening on the panel on stability in cyberspace this evening. He will be elaborating on instruments which we deem crucial in that regard. And furthermore, there are representatives from the University of Lausanne, from the Geneva Center of Security Policy, the GCSP, and the Geneva Internet Platform that I mentioned earlier, who will speak on different panels as well. So I do thank you very much for your attention, and I wish you a very fruitful conference. Thank you.